120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'Hi,
My name's McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it's time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning's talk champion in the house, Jonathan Small. Oh, yeah. How you doing, Jonathan? It looks like you're doing pretty good over there.
Good. I see you have a little new theme music.
Yeah, a little new theme music, you know. You got new glasses.
I do.
I just looked at your face for the first time this morning.
I let Harvey and Lewis talk me into upgrading other pair of glasses, putting a lens into an older Ray-Ban frame. He told me this would be better. Mm-hmm. Not better than the other Gazelles, but better than one of my other old glasses. So I let him talk me into it.
Ray-Ban versus the Gazelle.
Yeah, you need to try. Well, I don't know your style. I don't know if you Cartier.
No. These are Ocean State.
Ocean State?
Yeah, $299.
Oh man. I don't know. You gotta upgrade your game a little bit sometimes. Well, you're not into glasses fashionable.
I just need them to be able to see I need them to be able to see in between the edge of my fingers and my nose. Beyond that, I'm good.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah. So you know.
Do that. Yeah. All right. Well, to each his own and everything.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the Super Bowl last night?
The Super Bowl was fabulous last night, except for the fact that Philadelphia lost. I haven't called my dad because I want to hear him bemoan about how the game ended.
I'm not surprised, though. I mean, I knew it was going to be a good game, but you got Patrick Mahomes. Did you see how he played last night?
How could you not see how he played? After the ankle, everyone said, he's out, he's done. No, he came back.
He came back. He got heart. He got talent. I mean, he didn't have the best game in the world, but he had
right.
But he had a solid game. He didn't make any turnovers, and the turnovers was really the one key play.
Yeah, Philly's turnovers cost him the game.
Well, Jalen Hurts played a pretty solid game, but he had the one fumble.
That's all. The one fumble lost the game.
Mm-hmm. And you're not buying into the referee made a bad call, a holding penalty.
Nah.
Again, you're not buying into that that cost the Eagles the game.
No, that didn't cost the Eagles the game. The Eagles cost the Eagles the game. It was a good game. I mean, my goodness, it was evenly. You know, whoever really had possession of the ball at the end of the game was going to win. Right off the bat. It was dynamite. Yeah, but that, by the way, that's Jay Hogarth in the background. You had mentioned about the new theme. I'm just following up on that.
I've heard him before on your show.
Yeah, he's a dynamite
dude. Okay,
dynamite dude. Yeah,
to do that.
Yeah.
So you're gonna move on now from the Eagles. Now I guess there's nothing to really look.
Well, you know, the season's over, and you know, the greatest of all time's not playing in the game anymore. So
yeah. One quick thing though, before we get into, I guess, hopefully. I thought about you. You know, Wilson Pizza, I haven't been there in a long time. And I know you don't like Wilson Pizza.
I used to like Wilson Pizza because something about it has changed.
But try it out. I had a special pizza last night, and I give it a B grade.
A B grade.
Not an A grade, but still better than what I used to give Wilson, a C grade. So
let's come up a notch.
Come up a notch. Yeah, you have nothing to lose. Then just try it out. You know, buy yourself a little small special pizza, and if you like it, then you can go back, you know, whenever you feel like it.
Well, you know, Wilson does the Greek style pizza. I'm from Philly, you know. Pizza's something that you just gotta throw up in the air.
Yeah, they don't do that.
They don't do that. They do the hand, you know, they pack it into the pan, and you know, they put it's not a bad pie, as they say.
Well, maybe your Harry's pizza is still better than Wilson's. I haven't never
Harry's
tried
will always be better. Rest in peace. Yeah, but Harry's is closed, so it's gone. There's no sense in become like a Whalers fan.
But there's some other but isn't there some other pizza place that you had substitute Harry's for that you go to?
Well, there's Harry's Bishop's Corner. My daughter goes there via us.
Right.
So you know we get her pizza there every week.
Well, you like Lily Soul, so the next time you're in that area, if you go to Lily Soul every week or however often you go there, check out Wilson Pizza. They don't sell the slice, so you still got to buy either a small, medium, or large. You're kind of locked in. But the special, try a special. I think you may like it. But you know, it's still up to you. You know.
All right. Well, I'll drop into Wilson's and see if the pizza's return to its former greatness.
Right.
But, you know, after 30 years, it's not the same.
It's not the same. You're right.
Nah. The pizza chefs change. You know, these things happen. But nonetheless, it is Monday. Jonathan and I can have this conversation after our special guest. Of course, every Monday we bring great people in to have conversations about things that they are definitely experts in and know a whole lot more than we know. So that's why we bring them here, so that you get information from the experts. So Mr. Small is the official booker of guests. We let him have the honor of introducing our guest of the week.
Well, good morning to people out there on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show. This morning we have a guest who has a background in front, well, a past background, not only behind the scenes, but also she had a career in front of the scenes. And this guest knows many different elements of the entertainment, television industry, social media, reality TV, kind of what she specializes in. So the guest this morning on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show is a partner of Chair 10 Productions. She's also a reality TV casting director, no other than Lauren Black. Good morning, Lauren. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing really well this morning. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing fine, and you, Lauren? It's a pleasure to have you on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Lauren, before we get into our topics of discussion, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background briefly before we get into our show?
Yes, so I'm originally from Connecticut, born and raised in Newtown, and graduated from Newtown High School. And then I spent a couple years working in TV news. My very first job out of college was at the NBC station here in Connecticut. And then I bounced around a little bit before finally landing in Los Angeles, where I've been working in reality TV, in production, and post-production, and also most recently in casting. So I've done TV shows like Amazing Race, America's Next Top Model, Bar Rescue, and I've recently been working on a show called Homestead Rescue for Discovery, finding families who are homesteading off the grid and who need help.
Well, Lauren, exactly what is the definition of reality TV?
So reality, I think, is sometimes a little bit of a misnomer. The better term is probably unscripted, and there's a whole bunch of content that encompasses. So those are competition shows, those are docu-series. So think like Swamp People or Duck Dynasty or Keeping Up with the Kardashians, where you have camera crews following people around, and it's not necessarily their real lives. There is a sense of producing with it, but it's not scripted. You don't have a writer behind the scenes writing the words that people are saying. They're being themselves. And then a whole lot of stuff in between. So there's a lot of format shows. I've done some home renovation stuff for HGTV. So there's really a lot that encompasses the genre. It's just basically anything that doesn't have a writer and actors that's being scripted. It's everything else.
So I guess the difference between reality television or unscripted television and I guess television shows in general is television shows are scripted.
I mean, a lot of what you see, so if you're watching like a Law and Order or I'm watching The Last of Us on HBO, like those are the types of shows where they're usually based on some existing content. A lot of the shows these days, so it's based on a book or a comic book or a video game. And then people sit down, they have writers who, brainstorm storylines, and they, and it's really up to them, their imagination, their creators, their artists. And then those scripts go out and people, you have actors who play those roles and tell those stories through acting. Reality TV is different than that. It is, real people playing themselves, being themselves, really competing on these shows. And there is an element to some of these shows where things are produced, but no one is telling them what to say. No one is telling them what to do. And they are, as I said, being themselves. And a lot of it, I've done some shows, like it's harder than scripted TV in a lot of ways because you're not controlling things behind the scenes like you do in a scripted show where you're writing what people are saying, you're telling, and they're actors, you're paying them to act as these characters. Where in reality shows, they're being themselves and it's real life and they're real life situations. And there's a certain element of where you can't control things like that. Amazing Race, they send people out around the world. And if they miss an airplane or they don't get a taxi cab or they get stuck somewhere where you don't know where they are, like that's reality. And that's part of what the show is. And that's part of the appeal.
Well, Lauren, do you still have to be somewhat, have acting talent, know how to remember lines, know how to look a certain way in front of the camera? Do you still have to have all of the same elements that a regular actor would have to have?
I think with reality TV, like these are real people. So a lot of what reality TV is casting, which I've done a lot of, and that is finding the right people who are really great on camera, who don't need to be told what to say, who are just really great, charismatic presences, and anything that they say that comes out of their mouth is funny. Like those are the great people. I mean, not necessarily funny. It depends on what you're looking for, but those are the great people to cast because they're the people who are themselves, big personalities, fun and exciting to watch. They say funny things, they do funny things, they, play a role a certain way. And they also, in a lot of situations have the expertise. I've cast cake bakers. I've also cast former FBI agents, and depends on what the role is, but they're also bringing their real world knowledge to the table. They're not just reading lines someone gave them. They're bringing their experience to the show. Yeah.
Well, Lauren, isn't in some areas you see reality TV may be crossing the edge? You see sometimes fights. I don't know, again, if it's planned or not planned. I've seen incidents where people are throwing things at people. I mean, is there different levels of reality television that, goes a little further than you would, I guess you would expect in reality television?
Well, I think, yes. I mean, there's a little bit, and I think that's like the difference between unscripted versus reality, that there are a lot of these shows, and it's more, the docuseries, like a Keeping Up with the Kardashians or Real Housewives of New Jersey, where people know that they're cast to kind of play these roles. So they're not necessarily playing themselves, they're playing a version of themselves. And there are producers behind the scenes who are telling them, that this is kind of what we're expecting out of a scene. But, so there is that element. But then there are other shows where producers don't really get involved. And again, like Amazing Race, they let the circumstances be the things that cause the drama and create the drama. And when you have people who are flying around the world and they haven't slept and they're cold and they've been running and they're trying to figure out a puzzle, like that drama is going to inherently happen because, you're kind of pushing them to these limits and putting them into a situation where you're going to elicit these responses. So, and the responses are real a lot of those times, but it depends on the show. It depends on what you're watching. And a lot of it, even like a competition show, like America's Next, I mean, these are all older references, but I did some baking shows, and you put people into high stakes situations, you give them a clock, and, you give them a task that's going to be hard to accomplish in that time period. And when things go wrong, they're going to react in big ways, or, if they see someone getting in their way, they might pick a fight with them. And a lot of that is real. They're real emotions, they're real feelings. They are in this situation that has been created for them that, sometimes will bring out those emotions.
Now, Lauren, as a casting director, what exactly is your role? I mean, for people who are not familiar with what a casting director does for reality television, what exactly is the definition and what exactly are your duties?
So all of those people that you see on those TV shows, they have been selected to be on those TV shows. So depending on the show, there's a small team of people or a large team of people who are looking for those people, finding them wherever they are, interviewing them, putting them in front of the producers and the networks who end up deciding who goes on TV. So a lot of what casting is first it's outreach, letting people know that you have a new project that you're casting, or maybe it's a show that's been on TV before, but you have a new season. So putting the word out, getting it to the right people so you find the types of people you're looking for. So I was just doing a show where we were looking for people who have homesteads, who are off the grid. So you have to think, where are those people? Where are you going to find them? And then you go to those places. And then you contact people who you think look good. There might be an application process, so you're going through applications. Otherwise, you might just be cold calling people or reaching out on social media saying, hey, I'm casting the show. We are wondering if it's something you might be interested in. And if they're interested, you have conversations with them, you find out more about them. And if you think that they'll work for what you're looking for, you do an interview on Zoom usually, and then you edit it down into a short casting reel that is then presented to the producers and the network. And then from there, they decide who they are going to cast on the show. So my job is finding the people, interviewing them, and then getting them ready to present to the network so they can possibly be cast.
For some reason, Lauren, that sounds more like a producer, but you're saying a casting director.
So there's different levels. So casting producers are the ones who do the interviews, and then casting directors, it's kind of like a supervising casting producer where you're overseeing the department.
Oh, okay. So thanks for that.
So it's a little bit different than a scripted casting director where you're finding actors and making offers and, having them read lines for you. This is like you are talking to people, finding out about them, about their lives, about their motivations, their histories, their personalities. Sometimes, it's their relationships, depending on what the show is. And then based on that, you're figuring out what their story is and then, yes, producing them to a certain degree. So the casting director is just the person who oversees that process on a particular project.
Oh, okay. And then again, I guess today's era with social media, you can do things a little bit differently, because I believe reality television started about 30 years ago, maybe in the 90s. And
yeah, I mean, I think some of the first shows, the ones that were popular were The Real World. So that was the 90s. Then it really took off in 2000 with Survivor and shows like that, which was a competition show. But since then, back then, a lot of it was, going to people where they are. A lot of it's making phone calls. So you're looking for an Italian family. So let's, look at neighborhoods that have a lot of Italians in them. Let's call up some pizzerias and some other things to see if they might know people who fit the bill of what you're looking for, and getting the word out that way. Now, a lot of it is on social media because that's where people are gathering. So you want to go to where people are. So a lot of Facebook groups, again, for the homesteading show, you're looking at a lot of homesteading groups on Facebook because that's where these people go to get information, to talk about their problems that they're having. So that's where you'll find people. And then also people are just, on Facebook, on Instagram. I mean, Instagram is more of a public space. So that's where people post about what they're doing. You're looking for cake bakers. I looked for cake bakers for a show who were doing very sculptured cakes. A lot of those people are posting pictures of the cakes they've made on Instagram and they're putting hashtags on it. So you look at hashtag sculpted cake, you see who comes up, you kind of have a sense of like, what's really good. Because of course it's TV. You want someone who's really talented. And especially for what we were doing for this show, you want them to have like these really elaborate sculpted cakes. You find something that fits the bill and then you send them a message on Instagram. You slide into their DMs and then hopefully they respond and they're interested.
Well, Lauren, is reality TV a rating-driven market that you can easily attract a lot of people to watch? Because that's still the base of what television is all about. You have to have the high ratings to stay, I guess, on the air.
I think the streaming model has changed that a little bit to the extent where, the streamers aren't necessarily releasing their numbers, but it's all about getting viewers and also getting buzz. So it's about stuff that people are talking about. Mm-hmm. And you want to create that buzz. And what you're going to do to create that is two things. You want to have, big stories that people want to watch, but you also want to have big characters. So, it's the stuff that enters the zeitgeist. So you have, like a Selling Sunset or The Circle on Netflix where people are talking about it and it's creating that water cooler talk. And that's really what you're looking for. And a lot of that, really, again, in reality TV, it does come down to casting, where you want the big personalities that people are going to love, that people are going to love to hate, and that people are going to love to watch.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stan, let me kind of bring you into the conversation. You have a background in television. You've done television, movies, I believe, in the past. I don't know if that would fall into the category as reality television because it was kind of already scripted. What's your take on reality television? Do you think it's a good market to have in our industry? Or you have any... Just kind of get your idea what you think about reality television.
Well, it's an interesting question in terms of a good market to have. I mean, it is a market. So, I mean, yeah, it's, you need content. And there's a whole, from Cops. I remember Cops.
That's right.
When that first came out. Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of reality TV. It depends upon what it was. When I was running for mayor, one of the things I was going to do, had I become mayor, was have a reality program. It would be like, I was going to call City Hall Full Transparency. So wherever I went, a camera went, and people could see what goes on. So, I mean, I think it's a really cool way to introduce the general public to what people go through. And it's, I mean, it's another genre or another avenue of expression. I think it's.
You have any questions you wanted to ask, Lauren?
Oh no, I'm listening. This is very. Okay. I'm always in active listening mode. So.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. This is. I mean, you don't need an amen choir here.
Okay.
Just,
all right.
Yeah, what she's saying is cool.
All right.
Well, and to kind of jump on that, I mean, there's different kinds of reality, as we were talking about at the beginning. So it's not just, some of the heavier stuff. I mean, you get some stuff that really takes you into people's worlds. But then there's also like the baking shows and, the design shows on HGTV and stuff that people like putting on TV and relaxing to. Or, you've got, The Bachelorette or The Bachelor, and you watch people falling in love. And so there's lots of different types of reality TV. So, if you might not like one genre, there's always a different genre that might appeal to you. And I think that's part of the, the draw of this genre, or just the reality TV as a whole, that there's a lot of different types of reality TV, and there's usually something that appeals to people in a lot of different ways. So, there's people who love cooking and will watch cooking shows all day and will use that to learn how to cook. And there's people who want to watch something like The Real Housewives and just relax and watch people acting a little wild. And so there's a little bit of something for everyone. And then there's definitely the more serious docu-series stuff that, really gets behind the scenes of some of the things that are going on in the world and, really shows people things that they might not see otherwise, or it introduces you to a type of person and a type of life that you might not come across in your life, and really just kind of gives you a broader perspective. And one of the great things about casting reality shows is I get to meet people from different walks of life. So again, recently I was talking to homesteaders, but I've talked to the cake bakers, I've talked to the interior designers, I've talked to the FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, police officers, former special operations for the military. So I've gotten to meet a lot of people that I wouldn't necessarily come across in my everyday life. And you get to talk to them and learn about them. And it's a great way to really kind of see different sides of the world and different perspectives and really have that respect for people as well.
Well, Lauren, isn't it still when you get into reality television, you have to still target the platforms like getting on a television station or a television network or a cable network, and now probably social media, YouTube, Netflix. So you still have to be able to get the reality television show, I guess, on a network. You just can't do a reality television show and not be able to put it in front of a network.
So like people can do their own stuff and put it on YouTube, but when it comes to the larger reality shows, it's getting on TV, it's not quite like independent film where anyone can make a movie and seek out distribution. There are certain channels and platforms that, kind of control television, that control the access. And so you do have to go through those. And a lot of times there are major production companies that are doing those shows. So, it's really hard for someone who has an idea for a reality show to just break in. You have to go and approach a production company that is already making TV shows. It's making the kind of TV shows that you want to do and producing shows within networks that you want to work with. And then you have to talk to them. So if you're an independent producer with a reality idea, you have to go through those channels. You can't just make a TV show. You can make it and you can put it on YouTube or other social media platforms, but to get it on a Netflix, there's a huge process to get to that point where you have to find a producer who is producing stuff for Netflix or producing stuff at that level who can pitch to Netflix. Netflix is just not going to hear pitches from, people. So, so there is that gatekeeping. And then, when it comes to casting people for reality shows, where I come in usually is that a production company or a TV show or network will hire me to cast the show after it's already been picked up for the network. Or, there's a certain level of development where production companies will cast shows in order to get them approved, but usually these are production companies who have the big budgets, who have the money to do the development work. And so they might pitch something that might not be on TV yet. A lot of casting is cast dependent, or a lot of TV shows are cast dependent. So I've done a lot of development shows where you cast people on the show in order to get the show approved, and it's all very cast dependent. So they're not going to say yes to the show unless they have the right cast, and unless they can see a pilot presentation where they think, okay, yes, this show will work for our network. So even these major production companies, they work on a lot of ideas. They produce a lot of pilots, presentations that don't get picked up. So even when you get to those levels, it doesn't necessarily guarantee if you have a good idea and you have the right cast that it's going to end up on TV.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lauren, you have a tremendous background, and like I mentioned before we started the show, also in front of the camera that you mentioned, off of the air that you did briefly. So when you are trying to enter the entertainment industry, I guess today it might appear that it's so much easier because of what you have with social media, and it's kind of leveled the playing field to some degree. But do you still have to have, like yourself, I guess, a college degree, experience? Do you have to have the right connections, the right location? I mean, if you're looking at entertainment television, whether it's reality television or television, where we at today, is it's far more easier to get into this industry than it was in the beginning stages, in your opinion?
So first, to clarify, I was a TV news reporter in Duluth, Minnesota back in 2004, and I wasn't that great. So have a little experience in front of the camera, but that was never really what I wanted to do. And I do think that now with social media, everyone has a camera that they carry around in their pockets where they can live stream to an audience of how many ever that they can accumulate on social media. So there's definitely a democratization of the process. So if you want to be on camera, you can be on camera. You can shoot yourself, put it out there on the internet, and if you have the right content and the right personality, you'll get followers. And so I think there is that chance. And when it comes to getting on television, if you want to be an actor, there's a different process to it. But if you're interested in reality TV, we cast normal people. It depends on the show. And sometimes it's cake bakers and people with a special talent. And sometimes you look at The Circle for Netflix, you can be anyone. They're looking for normal people, and they're looking for people with big personalities and interesting background and interesting stories. And if you have that and you apply and you stand out, you can get on TV. And it's the same thing, the people who go on The Bachelor and Bachelorette, they usually end up as Instagram personalities. They're on the cover of the tabloids. That's what you want. They're looking for real people. They aren't necessarily looking for people who want the fame, but they're looking for people with big personalities who are genuine. In the case of The Bachelor, they're looking for people who want to find love. But there's always that side effect where if you go on that show, there's a chance that you can find a greater audience for whatever you want to do. And so if you do have a great social media presence, if you're out there, if you want to get on TV, if you want to get noticed, have that social media presence, really cultivate who you are, but also be genuine. We don't want people who are necessarily faking it because they want to be on TV. We want to have people who are just big personalities and interesting stories and people that you love to watch. But if you put yourself out there, and if there's a show you want to be on, look for castings, apply to the show. And, there's certain places that definitely have casting accounts. The company I was working for is called All Three America. They have a casting page on Instagram, and they'll post all their castings. And they do The Circle, they do Homestead Rescue, they do a lot of stuff in between. And so if you want to get on one of those shows, follow those accounts, apply for the castings, and really, be present on social media so people can find you.
Well, as you keep mentioning, social media really is kind of the key today because it's a different way of how you're going to be able to reach people than you had in the past. I mean, obviously, if you started off 30 or 40 years ago, social media was really non-existent. And the old way of reaching people, pick up a telephone, mail people. I mean, it makes it so much simpler. It makes it so much easier. And then even when you look at the different levels of what we're doing here now via Zoom, wasn't in the beginning you had the Skype format before Zoom.
Yeah. But we did the same thing. So for casting, I started again in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't way back in the day. So I'm not sure how they did things back then.
Right.
And even when I started, that we had this, because the internet speeds and the programs weren't that good, we would have people record themselves on their own devices. So if they had a digital camera or a cell phone at the time, and even then the cell phones weren't that great. So we would do the interview over the phone, have them put us on speaker, and then they would record themselves, and then they would have to upload the video, which was, a longer process. And then we started doing Skype, where you just talk to people over Skype, and usually the quality was good enough, and the network for casting videos expects Skype level quality. And so you're talking to people all around the country. You're not able to travel to them and see them in person, and you just want to get a little clip of them to see what they're like on camera. And so doing those interviews via Skype was efficient for what casting is. Depending on the show, they might fly people in to certain places. So, you watch American Idol, they do a lot of those auditions in person. And a lot of shows do have those final castings, or did back in the day, where they would bring everyone together and really see how they were in person. But now a lot of it is, and this was before the pandemic, a lot of it was on Skype and now Zoom. And from what I'm seeing, Zoom has been a lot better in terms of the internet connection and the video quality and the audio quality. So right now, and it's a lot easier to use. So right now, a lot of things are on Zoom, but it's working really well. And so you don't have to be in person. And I think you can get a good sense of who someone is via Zoom, via the internet. And, they're going to be on screen on on the show anyway. So you want to see how they are on camera, and this works just as well and almost better than having them in person.
Stan, did you want to ask Laura something, or did you want anything that you wanted to say? I don't
No,
know.
no. This is going great. We just up against a break right now.
Oh, okay.
So what we'll do is we'll take a short break, and then we will be right back with our special guest talking about reality television, casting, social media. It's Morning Talk. Stick and stay. Don't go anywhere. And we'll be right back.
Every bad political decision is made by a politician elected to office. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, just remember this. There are people sitting with politicians in a back room making deals about your future, making policies about your children, making decisions about your neighborhood. To them, you are just a vote. You are not their charity. You are not their cause. You are just a vote. Elections have consequences, and if you don't vote, you are actually voting to keep these people in power to work against you. Now, more than ever, you need to make your vote count. Declare your independence from the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
Hi,
My name's Stan McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Okay, my friends, welcome back. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. Jonathan Small is in the house, and we have a special guest, so we'll continue with our conversation.
Okay, well, Lauren, you was mentioning before the break the difference with technology, how, Zoom, or Skype used to be the stage, how you could interview people from a distance, a different geographical location, and the quality of, let's say, Zoom has really been subpar towards Skype. And you see most interviews now, even on television shows, being done more via Zoom than Skype. Is this an expensive process? I guess in the beginning when you had the transformation going into Skype, was that something that you had to have like a big network towards interviewing people via Skype?
No, I mean, I think a lot of it is just internet connection, and a lot of that has gotten better over the years. I think it's just like, from a practical perspective, Zoom and Skype do the same thing. Skype was just very glitchy. I would have to have people, there were days where, or times where I would interview people and I couldn't hear them and they couldn't hear me, and they'd have to restart their computer. And that just doesn't happen a lot with Skype. A couple times, people can't connect their audio, but it's not really a persistent problem. And there were a lot of times that even with decent internet connections, Skype would, the video and the audio would skip. And what you're doing when you're doing these casting interviews is that you're trying to get video that you can send to the network to really present these people. And you want to put the best foot forward because, TV executives, like a lot of executives, but especially I guess TV is very visual. And you have that one chance to make that first impression. And if it doesn't go well, even if it's the best talent, if the audio is skipping and the video is skipping and they're not really coming across their personality, that's going to work against them in terms of getting cast on the show. So what you want is really great quality video and audio. So when it's presented to the network, they can say, yes, I see this person and I can see them being on our TV show. And so a lot of times with Skype, I mean, it happens sometimes with Zoom if people don't have great internet connections, but if the audio starts skipping and the video starts skipping, you kind of lose track of what they're saying and you're not really into what they're saying. You're not paying attention to them. And so who they are isn't coming across, not because they're not being themselves and they're not being, charming or funny or whatever they are, but because your focus is on the quality of the video where it's skipping and you can't hear half of what they're saying because the audio keeps dropping out. And so that gets really frustrating. And there have been times when I've had to reschedule interviews because the quality wasn't good enough. And so I just noticed that just doesn't happen as much with Zoom. And I think part of it is that the technology is getting better. And I mean, Skype came out, 15 years ago, and Zoom is a much newer product. It's web-based. And it's also just very easy to record on Skype. If you wanted to record an interview, you had to have a third-party program that would allow you to record it. Zoom has the recording function built in. And so it just makes it a lot easier to get the job done. And also, everyone is on Zoom. When you interview people on Skype, they had to download the program and create an account. With Zoom, you send someone a link, they click on it, they open it, they might have to download the program on their computer. But it's a lot easier. Everyone has it. It's being used for a lot of things beyond reality interviews right now. It's being used for a lot of meetings. And so people are familiar with it. And so it makes it a lot easier for them. With Skype, you had to get someone's username and then add them to your list and then call them. And it's much easier on Zoom to just click a link, the window pops up, and then you can just go from there.
Well, Stan, I see you shaking your head because I remember when you had Skype, I was trying to talk to you a couple times to do an interview via Skype, and you just never really felt comfortable putting that whole.
Well, now you have a third. You have a second person to tell you.
Exactly.
Because it was hard to explain to Jonathan. Jonathan is just the technical. Well, yeah, but what if? What? No.
Well, we had to send long explanations to people. So when you have someone that you've set them up for a casting interview, you give them instructions on, what not to wear, how to frame up the shot so it looks good, so it kind of fits that standard lighting, because you don't want to be sitting in front of a window where you're backlit and all the lights coming in behind you so you can't see your face, because it's casting. You want people to be expressive and you want to see them and be able to connect to them. So we always send them those instructions even now. But back then, we also used to include instructions on how to download Skype and how to set up an account and how to do the interview. And now we just send people a Zoom link, and it's just a million times easier.
Well, let me ask you another question about Zoom and even Facebook, because you can almost, I don't know if you can say Facebook is similar to Zoom, where you can talk to someone and they can see you in front of a camera. So I do want to get your, opinion on that level, but also making a business decision towards hiring someone or casting someone. It used to be the time you had to really felt, if I'm going to make a final decision, I need to interview the person physically in front of me. Does the via Zoom setup operation, or maybe even a Facebook conversation interview, is almost the same thing now, that you can make a decision towards hiring someone or casting someone based on an interview that you have via Zoom, more than calling that person into your office Do you feel
Well, I mean,
comfortable?
it's always been hard in casting when you're casting people around the country
Mm,
to, meet them all in person.
okay.
And like I've done interviews in person when people are in the same city as me, and so it's just easier to just go over and interview them in person.
Mm,
But I think like the standard is just Zoom or Skype, and so we do it that way. I mean, in terms of Facebook, like the important thing with what I'm doing is I need to be able to record. So, talking to someone on Facebook and even like FaceTime on the phone.
FaceTime. That's what I meant, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, because you can video chat with someone on Facebook, but even like FaceTime, it was kind of the same as Skype, where the call recorder software is something you had to download. It doesn't come, you can't just like record someone when you're FaceTiming them on your phone. And Zoom just has a built-in feature because it's meant for meetings. And, the idea is that if you have 20 people in a room and you want to record it and put it on the internet later, it's just built into Zoom. Whereas that just wasn't a consideration when they were coming up with Skype, where it's like a, phone call with video as opposed to something that might have uses beyond that call. So the important thing when I do something is I need to be able to record it so that I can show it to the producers, show it to the network so they can make their decisions. I mean, in terms of like having people come in person, I think a lot of that depends on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And usually casting is just one step in the process. So when I was working for a production company that was pitching a lot of shows to HGTV and some other things. And usually what would happen is the network would watch a bunch of Skype reels. And then if they like someone, they would tell the production company to go shoot a sizzle reel with them. So a sizzle reel is like a 3-minute show presentation where not quite like a pilot. You're not showing them, like this is what watching the show would be like, but you're giving them a taste of what they would see. So it's interviews with people, but then also, for HGTV shows, you want to see them in a house. You want to see them doing construction or building something, or at a store picking something out. So you kind of get a sense of like what the show will look like, and interspersed with sound bites from them. And that really helps sell the show. So casting is the first step in the process. And, some shows, like I had a baking show I was working on where they were planning on having in-person finals before they cast the show. So they were going to pick their favorite candidates and bring them all to Los Angeles and have them meet the producers in person. And then they were going to choose the final cast. And the pandemic kind of changed that, because at that point, we actually started, this was a show I was working on when everything shut down for COVID. So we were all in the office together, and then we went home and started doing everything remotely. And in that case, they did end up having the finals remotely. But, I think it just depends on the show and the needs. But, you get something like, I don't know, like The Circle, people aren't necessarily in person. They're not meeting together on the show. So I think it just, and I am not involved in casting that, so I don't know what their process is. So I think it just really depends on what the show is and what the needs are. And there is that element that once you get through the casting process, people do, eventually the producers do meet you and you are on camera. It just depends on the project, like where in the process that happens.
Well, Lauren, I think sometimes people need to get a clear understanding, because obviously what you do takes a tremendous amount of professionalism, technical aspects. In today's era of social media and the YouTube channel, I don't want to sit here and say it's giving people the false impression that you can basically, because you have your own YouTube channel, become famous, become wealthy, because it's just like an easy process to basically get in front of a camera. I mean, you got so many outlets today. It may be giving people this impression that you really don't need to be that talented. You don't have to be that serious, because you can easily put yourself through the media via social platforms. Do you think people need to be careful if you're making a career decision towards breaking into the media industry, just because you can get a YouTube channel and you can get seen, that's not really going to be all towards being successful? I think sometimes people may have this illusion that I'm famous because I have my own YouTube channel and everybody can see me.
Well, I mean, I think there's different stages. Like you can have a YouTube channel and it's how many followers do you have, and who's watching your show, and do you have a reach beyond, like anyone can see you, anyone can click on any YouTube channel, whether you have 10 subscribers or 10 million subscribers. And I think it really depends on how you're building your brand, what you're putting out there. And the people who are successful on YouTube have a reason behind their channel. They usually have great personalities. They have content that people want to watch. So even though it's not being controlled by like the gatekeepers at the networks, there's still an element of like people are deciding who to follow, who to watch. And those are the people who are making money off of ads, making money off promotions, and really able to build a brand. And so it is possible for people to become famous on YouTube. And there are plenty of people who've done it and done it well and made a lot of money out of it. But there are a lot of people on YouTube who aren't there and who only have a small amount of subscribers. And I think a lot of it depends on what your purposes are. And I think that's different for a lot of people. There are people who have YouTube channels to promote their businesses. And there are people who have YouTube channels because they want to become famous. And, you know, I think you just have to be thoughtful about what you want and why, what the purposes of your channel and how you're going to get to what you want. You can't just make videos and put them on YouTube and expect to be famous. There is a certain degree of thought that has to go into the product you're putting out, and the people who are going to be more successful on a YouTube, or I mean even Instagram or a TikTok, are people who are going to have a brand and a personality and content that people want to see.
Well, Stan, let me kind of bring you back into this, because it's almost like, you know, with the public access station that, you know, someone can get a television show very easy, I would assume, on the public access station, and they can have a weekly talk show similar to this, but obviously the public access, you're kind of limited in the past towards just the local market where you're located at. And some people are satisfied with that whole process. Do you like the format now? Do you feel like we've surpassed, I think you mentioned this in the past, that we've kind of surpassed the public access format in many areas?
Well, I think that, you know, like our guest has said, what are you trying to accomplish? You know what I'm saying? So there are, for lack of the better way to say, you know, there's best practices and policies and procedures to most things, including how you get a program started. Public access is a great place for you to get your feet wet and to get an understanding of how the process works, how production works. Yeah, you can go into a public access station and get yourself a show. Well, you know, what's the second show look like?
Right.
What's the first show about? Who's going to crew the show? You want to sit in front of the camera? Who's going to run the camera? Who's going to direct the show? Who's going to do the sound? Who's going to do the audio, lighting, all the subject matter? It's not just you want a show and you walk in the door and boom, you got a show. There's a lot of work. And public access gives you an opportunity to understand what that is. So you don't go to a public access station because you're trying to just start a show and you have a reach and you want to reach beyond, you know, your city. If you have a public access program in Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago, you don't need to reach beyond your city. I mean, you know, there's a million people right there.
Right.
So what are you trying to accomplish? And depending upon what that is, the vehicles or the mechanisms you use or the venues are sufficient. You're talking about broadcast television. It's you know, the difference is you making cookies in your house and you having a contract with Walmart to distribute your cookies. That's the difference. Broadcast television is serious big business, and it's you know, it's not like, you know, you want to be the next Oprah. Everyone wants to be the next Oprah.
Right.
Gail wanted to be the next Oprah. She didn't make it as a next Oprah. So, you know, everybody, you know, what depends on what you're trying to do. I think, you know, her answer is spot on.
Well, let me ask you, Lauren, a question. Lauren, do you kind of got an insight why Oprah Winfrey was so successful? I don't know if you really know for sure. I mean, obviously she was very gifted and very talented, but why was her business and her company so successful for so many years, in your opinion?
I don't know if I have an answer to that. I mean, I think a lot of it is personality. Like, they're just people that you connect to. And I think, you know, as a casting producer, casting director, you know, I know when I found someone that I think is great, who I think will be great TV. And it's just this like it's something that's kind of indescribable, and I kind of call it like a casting crush when I talk to someone and I kind of get a high off of talking to them, and they're just a great personality and they're really fun. And if I want to watch someone on TV and I like talking to them, then other people are going to want to watch them too.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you find those people, like, and people can have big personalities, but then there's something different about certain people where they have that charisma and that energy, and they're just funny and they're fun to talk to and they're relatable. And when you find them, you're just like, yes, this person is a star. This person is going to be great. Everyone's going to love them. Everyone's going to want to watch them. And I would say, I think Oprah has that quality that people just saw her and they were like, and maybe not, because I know she started in TV news, but really she blossomed when she had her TV show and she was able to really be herself. Because I mean, I come from a TV news background. I've been a TV news reporter and anchor, and there's a certain gravitas that you have to be able to report the news. There's a persona that you have to step into because you are a person that people are trusting to deliver the news and this information that they need to have. And so you have to embody that. And I mean, a lot of TV news reporters in smaller markets are straight out of college. They're in their early 20s, and they have to kind of assume that personality so people will trust them and listen to them, and then they can, move up in their careers. But I think when you get into a talk show space like Oprah, I mean, there's like some morning show hosts that are kind of like this. They get to be more themselves and be more personable. And I think that's where she really came out of her shell and shined. And people saw her and they were like, we are really drawn to her personality, her warmth. And, I think at the end of the day, that's what made her successful. It's her, who she is, and what she brought to the table. I mean, she's also a very smart businesswoman, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the thing that makes her stand out versus other people is probably the personality in which she brings to the table and that little spark that she has that no one else does.
Exactly. Very good answer, Lauren, actually. I think you did a good job answering that question. And obviously, but Lauren, again, when you get into reality television, you still have the big networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, and then you have cable television. Are those still the main platforms that you're trying to get targeted towards your reality television shows?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the big reality shows. They're, it's going to be kind of the same players. And of course, there's like different networks want different things. So you're going to have your HGTV that wants a certain thing, your Food Network that's looking for, chefs and things like that. Streaming has obviously been a big part of the platform. Netflix is a big one. Hulu and Amazon are getting there, but I mean, Netflix has really stepped into the reality space. So I've done several Netflix shows over the past several years, but you still have your ABCs, your CBSs, and then a lot of reality is on your basic cable, your Nat Geo, your Animal Planet, your Discovery, all those stations. And then again, like the HGTVs, the Food Networks. So you have a lot of space because a lot of the programming on those cable channels is reality. The networks, obviously, ABC, CBS, they have their primetime slots, but those primetime slots are split where they have a lot of scripted shows they still have on. They have sports that they're showing on certain nights. And so there's less time for reality. And the big networks are going to have your bigger tentpole shows where it's like The Bachelor or Amazing Race. And it's going to be your cable networks that are going to have some of the smaller docu-series and things like that, where you get the Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And although that is now on one of the streamers, I can't remember which one. So there's definitely those places are still the go-tos. And besides the addition of the streamers, like that space hasn't changed too much in the past couple of years. There've been some new additions like a Tubi, where people are now watching stuff on that. And those are getting into the reality space as well, but it's still going to be your big networks, your cable networks, and then your streamers.
Now, Lauren, I know you're a partner in Chair 10 Productions. We've had your husband, Jonathan Black, on, and he talked about the business model of trying to bring television and film production to Connecticut. And you're originally from Connecticut, but you left to go to Los Angeles at a period of time, and now you're back in Connecticut. Your skill set and your expertise seems like it's going to be a tremendous asset to go along with your husband, Jonathan Black. Do you feel kind of optimistic about the future growth of television and entertainment in the state of Connecticut?
I do. I mean, right now we are really working to improve the film and TV tax credit here in the state. We have a pretty competitive credit. However, there's a lot of states that are surrounding us, like New Jersey, that have more competitive credits. They're getting a lot of the business. But, we had a press conference at the state capitol last week to really champion this. And we had a lot of people turn out who live in Connecticut, who are in the unions for crew, for SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union. And they have been going to places like New York, like Massachusetts to get work because they are not able to find work in Connecticut. And, we have this really strong community here, and we want to bring them together, bring these productions here. We've been talking to a lot of bigger clients, get back into the streamers like the Hulu, the HBOs, the ABCs, and we're talking to them about Connecticut, and they're very interested in shooting here. But we do need a better credit to be competitive and to really bring those TV shows here. TV shows and movies and film, and and really put the people who live in Connecticut to work here in the state, as opposed to sending them, like right now they're going outside the state because they need to find work and the work is not here. And if we can bring these big shows in, increase the credit, make Connecticut more attractive to those clients, then the work will come, and then all these workers who are in the state will be able to work here, live here, thrive here, and hopefully it'll attract more people to Connecticut. I think Connecticut has a lot to offer with its proximity to New York, with, we have lots of different locations, different scenery that makes it a great place to shoot. And we have a lot of really great crew here and a lot of really great actors. We just need the vehicles to be able to put them to work. So we're putting all the pieces together, and I think the future looks bright. I think there's a lot of people in the film community here who are really passionate about it, and there's a lot of interest from these clients to come here to the state. And so we just have to put the pieces in place to make it more attractive to them, so they can come here and we can get these people to work.
Well, sometimes I think people don't realize exactly the media companies that we currently have in Connecticut, and even how big and successful. When you take a look at the WWE, now I know this is a different field, but they deal with television, they deal with entertainment and media too. And the WWE, the World Wrestling. It used to be the WWF, now it's the WWE. Well, Vince McMahon basically dominates the whole wrestling media market now. It used to be different divisions throughout the country, but now basically the WWE, which is headquartered in Stamford, pretty much is the controlling factor of most of your major wrestling outlets throughout the country. And it's been in Connecticut for a very long period of time. But I don't know if it was for some reason people way Connecticut markets itself. People just don't sometimes realize what you already have.
Yeah, I think there's also a difference between WWE or ESPN in Bristol. Like they've been strong presences here, but they're more on the sports side, where we're talking about. And I know I've said I do reality, but Chair 10 is focused more on scripted stuff, scripted television shows, and feature films, and those things, especially on a higher level, a studio level, we want, a Paramount to come shoot a movie here, or Universal, or, some of these bigger, Netflix, Hulu, HBO, so that's the kind of level we're talking. So there's been some independent film shot here. And then obviously you have these big, sports and entertainment companies like WWE. And there's some reality companies here. I worked for a reality company called Lucky 8 that has an office in Stamford as well. But in terms of the bigger feature films, the bigger TV shows, they're looking at places like New Jersey, Atlanta, and they're not really looking at Connecticut. And we want them to be looking at Connecticut because they can bring big budgets. If you get a big budget TV show in here for 10 months or a year, that is long-term employment for people. And if it goes into multiple seasons, that will really help bring money into this community. And we're talking projects that are in the tens of millions of dollars. So we have a really great base here with ESPN and with WWE, but we want more business. And the type of business, you get a feature film, they can shoot anywhere for 3 months, 6 months, and they have the $20-40 million that they can spend anywhere. Why not spend it in Connecticut?
Well, that's an excellent way to kind of end this particular segment. I really enjoyed having you on this morning, learned a lot about reality television and other areas of entertainment and television that I was not really aware of. And I think you and Jonathan Black, y'all needs to be definitely highly applauded for your efforts and your talent base and what y'all have done and what y'all are trying to accomplish here in Connecticut. And I think once you get the Connecticut legislative, the governor, and the Speaker of the House, I think it'll push the whole structure a lot faster than it currently exists right now. I mean, that's a real important piece of the puzzle too. And
that's what we're trying to do. And we're really trying to rally people to understand what the tax credit does, that it doesn't just benefit Hollywood, it doesn't just benefit the state. Like if you have a big production that comes here, they're going to be spending money in hotels. They're going to be going out to restaurants. They're going to need coffee at the local Starbucks. They're going to, or a local coffee shop. They're going to be going out to bars and restaurants. They're going to need dry cleaning, food at the grocery store. They're going to be spending money in these communities. And if you bring people who are going to be here for 4 weeks or 6 weeks that don't live in the state, and they're going to be spending that money in the state, that's really going to be a real benefit to the local community in ways that I don't think a lot of people realize. But you have a production that's going to come and spend $40 million in 3 months. Well, where do you think that money is going? It's going to go into the state, into local businesses.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I really think that word needs to keep being alarmed out there to people, the benefits that it currently could exist and should exist in this area if it's presented in the best format and it makes it the most feasible sense. So again, Lauren, it was a pleasure having you on. If you have any last quick words you wanted to leave the audience before we end this segment, the mic and video is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. And I do think, if you are in Connecticut, if you are interested in getting involved in TV and film, or you are involved and you want to help our efforts to improve the tax credit, please reach out. Our website's chair10productions.com, and you can find our contact information there. And we really want to rally people to this cause because we think it's really going to be a really big benefit to the state. And so thank you again so much for having me on, and we look forward to your support.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule. I was actually at that press conference last week, and definitely something that needs to happen. I know Jim Maiman was a huge fan of that. Mm-hmm. And actually, he was supposed to be at that conference, but something came up at the last minute. But continued success. Keep championing the cause, because it's definitely something that has to happen.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. God bless you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Lauren. Okay.
Excellent.
Yes. She brings a lot to the table. I mean, there's a good balance between her and Jonathan Black.
Mm-hmm.
And they both got some similarities, too, in this field of entertainment. She definitely deals with casting as a casting director. Jonathan Black deals with the whole producing side, behind. And he does other things, too. So they bring, I guess, a good balance. You remember Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball, Desi Lou Productions.
Yeah. Desi was the backbone. He was the behind the scenes business level. Lucy was the popular actress.
No. You got that backwards.
I got it backwards?
Yeah. Desi was the part, but I mean Lucille Ball was the.
She was the. Okay, I thought it was always Desi Arnaz was the mastermind behind the whole business, but Lucille Ball was just
Lucy. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why I thought it was always Desi the business.
You think like a man.
Yeah, I think like a male chauvinist. Exactly. The same thing.
Yeah.
I think even Robert Johnson of BET, I think his wife played a tremendous role in the business model too. So, we really didn't go hardcore into social media like I was talking about last week. We kind of got a scratch of the surface a little bit to understanding of, what it really takes. Looks like it's easy. But maybe not as easy as it looks.
Well, hold that thought. We'll be right back after the break. Stick and stay, my friends. We'll be right back. More Than Talk.
Hi. So my name is Nelky Maldonado.
My name is Ramon El Arroyo.
And we know that Hartford Parent University provides good services and resources to parents in our communities, which are greatly needed because a lot of times our parents, they don't know where to go, how to get information, and being part of this program is essential to them in being successful in their children's education.
And I think that parents should get involved in their kids' education because it's very important. Education is, I always believe, is a success in life. If you got a good education, you can be very successful.
So we encourage our parents to please come join the program, ask lots of questions, and I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed.
How do you define evil? Is it the pedophile school administrator or taxation without representation? Is it the gatekeeping community leaders who sell out the very people they are fighting for? Or is evil the politician that puts out lies and takes in cash? However you may classify evil, having to choose the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. No wonder so many people don't vote. It's time for constituents to flip the script and leave the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
Hi,
My name's J.Stan McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Welcome back. Morning Talk. Jonathan Small is in the house this morning. Good information. Good conversation. Good interview.
Yeah, it was something that I think is still useful to have. I mean, like I say, Lauren and Jonathan Black is working on doing the action part, not just talking about what we need to have, but they actually are doing something that you can see. And although everybody may not be knowledgeable enough about what they're doing with their production company, it is happening. You know, it just may not be out there like a major CBS or NBC, ABC, but it's really growing. I just think people just don't realize sometimes what people are doing until you really see firsthand or talk to them exactly, you know, what their capabilities are, but what their whole strategy and how progress is actually happening. The same thing with what you and Nyesha is doing. You're really making a lot of difference. Joe Young, I think, is very instrumental. I think sometimes when you're trying to hit a grand slam, though, you may trying to hit that ball and get all four men, all three men, or three people home.
Well, I think yes and no. Once again, it depends on what someone's trying to do. You know, a homeless shelter is not trying to become the next Hilton hotel. They're trying to provide shelter and living conditions for folks who would otherwise be on the street. So every enterprise doesn't have to end in some grand
slam,
grand, why is the person doing what they're doing? And that's not to say that there isn't potential to do something else if that's what they want to do. A lot of times people see potential that they wish others would harness or focus. But that's not what they're trying to do.
Right. Same thing with you. I mean, you said you was thinking one time about doing a reality television show, but things just didn't come together enough to make it.
Right. I mean, it would have been fun to do, and I would have loved to do it, but that's not what I want. I mean, my mission in life wasn't to do a reality show about City Hall. But had the City Hall thing happened, this would be a great way to bring the general public into the arena of what actually goes on in City Hall. So it's a tool. I look at television. I've always looked at television as a tool. That's the reason I got involved.
Yeah.
Because it was a tool to help facilitate a bigger thing. So I wasn't in television for the sake of earning money and making a living off of TV. That's never been my motivating factor. Whereas someone else will produce something specifically because they want to be involved in television. But television is not easy to break into. Just like radio is not easy to break into.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
What makes it probably easier, Stan, is when you lower your standard. And I didn't really want to bring this up in front of Lauren because
No.
You don't think that's...
I know where you're going, but I'll let you finish so I won't appear to be presumptuous.
I didn't want to really bring this up in front of Lauren because we were dealing with a different type of subject matter, what she's doing with reality television. And sometimes, people may not accept it, but we have pornography that exists out here. And you have all sleaziness even now on the internet that exists out here. Now, there's no way you can convince people, and however Hollywood does convince people that you are technically, as an adult film star and actor, to get around other loopholes. So now you're classified as an actor by being in the pornography industry. Now, you bring that type of market because it's drawing millions of views. And I think the internet has really made it so much more dangerous now because you got sexual pedophiles.
I think these things have been around always.
But the internet has really driven it up, I think, a lot more faster.
Oh, I think maybe more people can get access, but people have had access to these things since the dawn of time.
Since the dawn of time, exactly. Well, they say it's it's the oldest profession in the book. I guess you know where I'm going at that.
Well, prostitution is not the same thing as pornography.
Well, if you look at it, these people are not doing it for free. I mean, that you're right.
People aren't working at Pratt and Whitney for free.
Right.
I mean, if you're talking about people being paid in order for their work, then everybody is a prostitute.
Everybody, well, yeah, but you're engaging your body, though. You're selling.
You use your body. We just watch a football game. All them guys out there leveraging their bodies.
Yeah.
If that ain't prostitution, I don't know what it is.
Nah, but I mean, I wouldn't.
We're talking about for sexual.
For sexual things,
right?
Yeah,
so
that's a whole different
pornography. You make it sound like because people are doing porn, they somehow have it easier. I'm not. I don't do porn. Don't watch porn. Never seen a porn film. I'm a prude. So what can I say? But I will say this: just because it's pornography doesn't mean it's somehow easier to get into. It's just as gate kept as any other industry.
You're
so
right. Yeah.
It's not like you become a porn star. Anyone can do it. No.
Anyone can do it. But if you're trying to, let's say, become a legitimate actor, I think. The acting skills, you got to know.
You have to have certain skill set to be a pornography
you do.
superstar, just like you do to be a Tom Cruise superstar.
Right. Okay. Well, you can almost.
There's no shortcuts, an easy way to the top of anything.
But see, that's almost like saying a legitimate business person, a person that sells drugs. You have to have a certain savvy about selling drugs, but I wouldn't put it in the same category.
You know who DeLorean was?
DeLorean?
Mm-hmm. The car?
I never heard of that car, DeLorean.
The DeLorean was a silver car. In fact, they used that car in Back to the Future. He needed money. So he decided he was going to try and do a little drug sales.
Yeah.
Ruined his company. Just because something seems to be a quick cash doesn't mean it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything good, criminal or legitimate, to be at the top of the game is not easy.
Right.
And it's very, very difficult. There aren't a lot of drug lords. There are not a lot of Pablo there are not a lot of Escobars or El Chapos or Frank Sinatra's or Michael Jackson's or Tom Cruise's or Denzel Washington's or name anything. Presidents of the United States. Pick whatever it is. Being at the top, being the best at something requires work. There's no shortcut to these things.
Well, Stan, I think there's no doubt the difference between a street level dealer and a drug kingpin. It definitely is going to move up the chain. It does require more work, more risk, really, what it really comes down to.
And more ruthlessness.
More ruthlessness it takes, yes, to really be a kingpin. But I'm saying I don't think you have to know how to read or write to sell drugs. I think you have to know how to count money. You have to know how to handle money, but it doesn't take no formal education.
It may not take formal education to sell drugs on a street corner because you're moving little product. If you want to be good at anything, you need to be good at the business.
Right.
To suggest that these guys who move international, this is not. It's not like they're stupid people, can't read, don't have a formal education, and bumbling their way through the top. They pay off judges, lawyers, politicians. They control police departments, intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen because somebody is stupid and they decided to do something that was criminal.
Yeah.
Criminal is just against the law. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It's just criminal.
Right. So, different levels that you just mentioned when you're moving up the chain of a low-level dealer to a kingpin.
And anyone can be a low-level, uneducated, not know how to work your way out of a paper bag and just do a task.
And you're very disposable, too.
No matter what you do or who you are.
Right. So you don't fault the internet then for some of our vices and some of our problems in society.
No. I don't blame the internet just like I don't blame the gun. The problem is not the internet. The problem is not guns. The problem are people. People have a problem. And so the internet is a means by which people can explore stuff, but the internet didn't create, moral decline. And this is not the first time that there's been moral decline.
And it hasn't accelerated it, though. I think it may have accelerated it, though, the moral decline.
I don't know. I don't think you can blame the internet for what's going on in Haiti.
Right.
Or in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Or in other parts of the world where there are hot armed conflicts. Just like Haiti. Just like Ukraine. You just don't hear about them. But, these are conflicts between human beings. Human beings, in my opinion, thus saith Stan, not necessarily the truth. In my opinion, and that's all it is, I could be very, very wrong. We have a human being problem. And people have to own those problems. And I think that's more the problem than it is the internet. The internet's a great thing to blame for the failures of humanity. Or we can blame guns because people decide to use them to kill other folk.
Well, the only thing you can say about guns and even the internet is it does create some problems for some people if you're not able to. If you had a problem, I guess, before you had the internet is just giving you a tool to utilize your problem or utilize whatever that you was looking to get into. So I think that's probably the whole argument. It's not to say that we didn't have moral decay and other ills in our society. But people will tell you, you didn't have access to be able to to engage in certain things is the way you have today. The good thing about the internet is it gives you a lot of good benefits of being able to do business, reach people, develop yourself. So there's a lot of pluses about the internet.
There's pluses and minuses for everything.
For everything, right.
The internet is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool.
Right. Well, there's a reason why you don't have the internet in jail, though. See, you have to still be careful with and everybody is not.
I can't speak on that. I don't know why they don't have the internet in jail.
Well, I've heard speculations.
I don't know. I don't. I can't speak to that at all. I don't know.
Well, you have to limit your communications from inmates. Inmates can't have access to certain information to reach people. You have to be, even your phone conversations are recorded. When you, if you have an inmate in jail, that whole conversation is being recorded because you don't know what this inmate is looking to say. He may be trying to escape jails, get people to bring drugs. So you have to be very careful and restrict things. And,
well, I guess so, But
that's the same thing that you mentioned about life, Stan. You have to have rules. You have to have a red light. You can't allow people to do anything that they want to do without some form of consequences. If everybody can do what they want to do, if I don't have to obey the law,
eventually, if everyone could do whatever they wanted to do, eventually everyone would be dead.
Exactly.
Because people would neutralize the conflicts that they see in front of them by neutralizing those people.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, we get caught up into law enforcement and we saying, police officers is this and that, but you have to have a police society. However you want to go about enforcing the law and what ways that law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
It's
every society has ways of enforcing its rules. So,
you don't want to become a Haiti. I understand what you're saying. You don't want the gangs to take over your whole country.
Like in Haiti?
Yeah, gangs are taking over basically. You don't want that. And I think that's the benefit of the United States. I mean, that's one of the greatest things about our country is that we still have a form of law and order.
Yes, we do.
You're going to have always some elements of corruptions and things going wrong in certain areas, but it's not to the point where gangs are taking over the whole country. You got some bad elements, some bad apples, some things that definitely needs to be cleaned up and corrected. But many times people in the United States, they don't know what it's like to live outside in a corrupt country where nothing seems to work in order towards the law. That's not to say that just because we have certain things that other countries don't have, we should rest on our laurels, though. You should always try to clean up whatever is wrong. But there's tremendous amount of benefits that you have in this country. And sometimes even, you might take things for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But I think again, I mean, I didn't really push heavy social media. But again, it's a good outlet and it's very beneficial, but you got to be realistic about, what you're trying to do. I think that's what it really comes down to, what you're trying to do with social media or media. If you're trying to get on a public access station thinking you're going to be the next Oprah Winfrey or Phil Donahue, you got to be realistic. It's just not likely to happen.
Well, that's true. But I mean, that shouldn't, because it's not likely to happen, doesn't mean that you shouldn't try.
Exactly.
There will be there are plenty of people who got their start on public access television. And now they're, just like people got their starts in a little church theater or a little community theater or playing midget football. People start somewhere. And so, opportunity and access is all anyone could ask for. Once you have the opportunity or the access, then once that happens, then it's a matter of the talent that you have, and are you what the people who are looking for stuff looking for?
Yeah.
No one's under obligation to give you the break you want. If you want a certain type of break, then make the opportunity happen yourself.
Right. And always be realistic. I think that's the thing about it, and don't give up. I mean, sometimes those are things that's hard to really teach people. Persistence, because sometimes when things don't go your way, now I understand after a certain period of time in life, if something is not going your way, you may have to get off of that track and move on to something else. Now that's you can't kid yourself at some point. Living in a dream world, and I think we have some real big important issues ongoing. Hopefully, if they call it the Clean Water Project or this new name that they call it, it could start to correct some areas, give some people the type of things that they are looking for with issues of basement floodings. I mean, we talked about this in the past, and that's real important too, as a homeowner or a small business person. So, another thing, I don't know if you paid attention, Stan, but you should know this. Housing is very expensive, man. I mean, if you look at the cost,
Housing is expensive because it's in high demand.
it's in high demand. Yeah,
Supply and demand controls prices.
mm-hmm.
And there's a big demand for housing, and the supply is somewhat limited. So the people who have that product can raise it.
Can raise it. Yeah. So the only thing I will see is you have to raise your income now, because if the prices are not going to come down, people can always talk about affordable housing. I don't know. You may look at affordable housing as a different terminology. I think when you hear people say affordable housing, they may be talking about housing at a lower rate. Affordable may mean what the person could actually afford.
Well, affordable is a relative term, so it's based on a lot of different things. So what one may say is affordable for one group is not necessarily affordable for the other group. So if your income is limited and you don't make enough money to pay $1,400 a month in rent or $900 a month in rent, then the housing is not affordable to you.
Right.
So, these terms sometimes don't really serve justice to the cause. I think a better way to say is we need housing that people who make,
a certain amount of money
can afford.
Yeah.
Right. If the person can only afford $800 a month rent, then that's what they need to say. I need housing that I can afford at $800 a month.
Well, see, the catch with that, you may have housing that only costs $800 a month, but usually it comes with some issues, and I think that's the reality of it.
That's the reality, Jonathan. Folk may want a house that like Michael Jackson has, but you can't afford it.
Well, I understand that part, but I think, and this is really up to the landlord. Now, at some point, probably just need to get a housing expert to go over this in depth. But obviously, if you get an $800 a month apartment in a bad area, the landlord isn't keeping up the property. You got issues with the heating systems. You got other issues. When you sign a lease agreement for an apartment, the water should work. If you got a problem with any issue, the landlord needs to be able to correct the problem.
I know.
And I think when you got these apartments that going for these rates, you'll find many times tenants are having issues with all types of structural problems, and they're not getting it corrected many times.
Because they got bad landlord.
Right.
The landlord is not a person of character or quality, and you're expecting them to behave in a way that they've shown you they're not going to behave. You being mad about it doesn't change their behavior. And oftentimes don't have the capacity to force them to do a thing because they're absent, they're not there. And so the obvious thing would be to move. But of course that sounds like somebody of privilege, because everybody can't just move. However, if you moved out of their building, you would put them in a real pinch.
Yeah.
It works when folk don't make enough money on their job. What do? They go on strike.
But the problem with moving for a group of people is if you'll find that if you're moving from one $800 a month apartment to another $800 a month apartment, the problems are probably going to be similar. So
that's because that's the kind of apartment that sells for $800.
Right.
This is not rocket science. So if if the apartments that are available for $800 aren't sufficient for people, then someone else has to help pay for the overcost of moving that individual into an apartment that is more suitable for them. So if the apartment is $1,800, then somehow somebody could come up with another $1,000 a month so that they could stay there.
And you have that. You have Section 8. I mean, that's already in place. So you have that.
So now I have a problem when the $1,800 a month apartment building that's being subsidized by fellow taxpayers doesn't live up to the standard of an $1,800 a month apartment. That's a problem. But even though you're paying $800, the rent is $1,800, and there's no excuse or reason, rhyme or rationale for the $1,800 a month apartment to not have $1,800 a month amenities.
Well, I think amenities and luxuries is one thing. I understand.
I mean, running water, working doors, things that you would expect from an $1,800 a month apartment, Jonathan.
But shouldn't a person that has a lease agreement for even an $800 apartment have running water? Isn't that part of what an apartment?
They do have running water. Very rarely does apartment building not have running water. If your apartment building doesn't have running water, you cannot live there. It's unfit for human occupancy. So the apartment building will be shut down and the building condemned if there's no running water. Now, there may not be hot water because the water boiler broke and the landlord doesn't seem fit to fix it. There are systems in place to make sure these things don't happen. But people are not availing themselves of those mechanisms.
But you got to give A.J. Johnson a lot of credit for what he did with the people on Barber Street, what they call it, the Barber Gardens, whatever, them brick buildings that they recently renovated. And now they got a new landlord and they're going to provide for $900 a month at least livable conditions. You don't have to say it has to be like 1,000 or 2,000 luxury.
It took a long time to get that one building.
Well, you see what people
shape.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It took a lot of work and a lot of effort from A.J. Johnson and other people in that circle to get that building in order. And there was a lot of other obstacles about the Section 8 vouchers, where they was trying to push the people. There's a lot that went into that story.
Yeah, that all started several years ago, back when before Trump got elected.
But I think now the way the building is looking and the new ownership, I think you're going to at least find adequate housing. I think
for how many people?
Yeah, for the people that live in that building. I don't know how many units are in that building.
Right. So, I mean, this problem is a lot bigger than one place on Barber Street. And so, there's a huge problem with housing. And like most things, because folk won't do what they're supposed to do, a lot of these problems exist. And what we need to do is for folk to do what they're supposed to do or suffer the consequences. But we live in a society that doesn't want to have consequences. And this is what happens. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. If you don't want to have a consequence over here, then the next guy says, well, why should I have a consequence? So we have all of these mechanisms that that allow for this dysfunctionality to exist, where the system is now corrupted. The system is corrupted or broken to many degrees.
But I think in some areas, what HUD has done over the years with revamping public housing, tearing down your public housing projects, building up new housing, and it looks very better. Well, it is better overall, but the restrictions now become, we're not building these low-income housing projects where anybody can move in. And there's no restrictions, there's no rules. You can almost, in the past, you was able to do anything. The only downside about some ways that new public housing has been developed is it has pushed a class of people out that can't even afford to live in the city, that would probably like to live there. And I do understand you have to go up on your rental rates, and you do have to have strict restrictions because you don't want the place to fall apart. But if you took an area in the city where an apartment now that, okay, in the past when it was public housing, somebody on Section 8 or welfare could live there $300 or $400 a month. Obviously, you have to correct that problem. You can't expect anybody to move into a place and then, get a good outcome. So now you tear down public housing projects, and your starting rental rates fit $1,500 a month to $2,000 a month. You know the people in many areas don't make enough money that they can afford to live there. So you set aside some affordable rate units for some people. And the only problem even with that is you can only make a certain amount of income. So now you got an affordable rate set aside apartment for $800 a month.
Well, when you say affordable rate, once again, we get into this thing affordable. First of all, you have this construction where people are supposedly have to have a set aside building.
Mm-hmm.
But the building is not set up for the people who need them. Because there's not enough bedrooms in the building to qualify for Section 8.
Right.
So you get the money to help offset the cost based on the fact that you're going to give 10% of the units to people as low income or affordable prices.
Mm-hmm.
But low income and affordable prices that are paid for or offset by the government or HUD have minimum standards of what the facility should be like in order to pay for the people who want to move in there. So if you have a family of 5 and the units that are set aside only have 1 bedroom, you can't move in there.
Right.
The system is not set up to help these people. The system is set up to help the folk who are the builders. So, if people want to really get real about this stuff, they need to change the whole discussion. There's a lot of showmanship and a lot of carrying on, but the outcomes never change because there's nothing really designed to get a different outcome. This is not rocket science. It's intentional political will. Where there's the will to get stuff done, it happens.
So is the new form of public housing a good thing? I mean, the way it's been laid out now throughout the country and here locally.
I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that at all. I don't know anything about
this
new form of public housing you're talking about.
No, but you've always stated in the past that the way that they're dealing with housing is they're trying to get people out of the city and attract a different class of people into
Well, that's
the city.
the gentrification. That's people who have the wherewithal financially to pay for and sustain cities is what that is. But we're running out of time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So we're out of time for this segment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Save this conversation for another show.
Right. Well, but great interview, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Great interview, and onward we press. I'm looking forward to next week. Yeah. Who
I don't have a
you don't have
guest
a guest
right now.
yet?
I'm working on a guest. I have a guest for the 27th, but I couldn't switch it to next week, so I got to work. I should be able to finalize it within a day or two. Hopefully we can talk about if I have my ideal show for next week, talk about the other side of this environmental racism that's going on. But I can't guarantee I'm gonna get the guests on.
Oh, you talking about the clean water stuff?
The clean water project and really get.
You could say it's environmental racism, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's about having folk basements not being flooded with sewage.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I'd be interested if you can get a guest. I'd love to hear what they have to say.
I want to get the other side though. We already had Cynthia Jennings on. So
But that's not another side. It's not an other side. It's not a philosophical discussion. It's sewage is in my basement.
Okay.
Get it out and stop it from coming in. That's the argument.
That's the argument. Okay.
Right. The rest is spin. That's what that is.
All right. Hopefully I get that finally.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. My friends, we'll see you next time. You all have a great rest of your day. Special thanks to our guests.